No, 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 no. Just no. Just no, 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 no. Hard pass. Generic control in the Dark Games. We're back with some more Game Theory FNAF videos. Today we're doing Golden Freddy, not what we thought. So maybe Golden Freddy is actually a different child? I'm not really sure. You want to check out last week's video, which had the full-length Psychic Friend Fredbear song that he did in the beginning. I'll leave my reaction to that right up there. I'll see a link down below in the description. Also, going to be placed on my channel with all the other Game Theory FNAF videos going in chronological order. I've only ever played the first FNAF game. It's actually 2 videos on my channel. I'll be playing through that. I don't like scary games, so if you want to laugh at my pain, go check that out. There's also Resident Evil videos on either this channel or the other channel. There's a playlist for those games, I'm pretty sure. I'm not really sure. Games are terrifying. I don't like scary games, but I've learned so much about FNAF. It is way deeper than I ever expected. And just a reminder, this series started because Mechatar or Ark Greenwolf commented every single day for 370 days straight to get me to react to this series, and you all showed so much support for it. So thank you so much to Mechatar and everybody that watched these videos and all the patrons, because they get the videos day early, and a lot of people have a paywall channel, because I couldn't do this if it wasn't for them. They're getting like 17 videos a week. Right now, they're getting 3 Kirby videos a week. My best friend Kirby, who I bring on the channel, those videos with her take a lot of extra effort to do, and usually we're only doing one, but the past, like, there's gonna be like a 5 or 6 week span where they're getting 3 videos a week that involve Kirby, which is just crazy. But thank you so much for the support. Hopefully we're approaching 69,420 subscribers. We're probably within 400 of that right now. At the time of recording, we're within 400 of it right now, so we're probably really close to it. So I'm definitely gonna post on social media the actual number, because I can see the actual number, although I don't think you all can because how YouTube changed it. I'm not really sure. I read every single one of your comments, so leave them down below. But let's go ahead and jump into Golden Freddy, not what we thought. All right.
Let me come home with you.
No.
Is there room for one more?
No.
Come home with you?
No.
Let me come home with you. Can I like home with you?
I promise I have more bullets than there are you. Oh, Lord. There's something. Oh, God.
There's room for one more.
No, no, no. No. Just no. Just no, no. No, no. Hard pass.
Hello, Internet.
That's a great intro, actually.
To Book Theory. Because if you have
Book
one
club.
moderately popular indie smash game in your franchise, chances are you also have yourself a 10-installment book deal. That's
Only
barely
10?
an exaggeration. Bendy and the Ink Machine, 3, with more
I know
promise
nothing
on the
about
way.
that
Hello,
game.
Neighbor,
Know
6.
nothing about that
Heck,
game.
It's a surprise that Baldi's Basics doesn't have an entire
What
trilogy
is
dedicated to the horrific backstory of the Jump Rope Girl. No joke, at this point in my life, I'm reading more video games than I'm playing. But of course,
Yeah, I don't
today
get to
we're
play
not
video
talking
games
about any
anymore.
of
I
those
just
other
stream them.
franchises. We're
Monday, Wednesday,
talking
Friday,
about
Saturday,
the
5 p.m.
Grandpappy, the one that paved the way for all those who would dare to follow in its footsteps. 5 Nights at Freddy's and its 8 books, as well as its 2 graphic novel reimaginings of the first 2 books. But here's the best part, dear friends. True to this franchise,
There's even
books
more
were
to come.
supposed to end at Fazbear Frights number
No.
5. We're currently at Fazbear Frights number 3. The end was in
Which
sight.
is-
That was gonna
what's
be
that
it.
one called?
That was the end of the line.
1:35 a.m.
Over. But oh no, my
Move the
friends,
finish line.
Of course not. Now there are 2 more
Blackbird.
final installments announced, just like every game after
Yeah.
FNAF 3. I used to joke that
FNAF
the
3 is supposed to be
fan
the
was
end.
the scariest part of this franchise.
fan.
Oh no, not
fans.
anymore, dear theorists. Now
Like
it's
moving air, wind,
multi-platform
car with windows down.
merchandising. So Fazbear Frights number 3, titled 1:35 a.m., just came out, and
Okay.
oh boy, there is a lot to talk about with this
It's an
one.
interesting
If you'll remember,
title.
Scott has made it pretty darn clear that this new book series is meant to help us solve the mysteries from the past.
Yeah, he's holding
And
your
that
hand.
The stories are, as they say in every book's official description, pulled from all different corners of the FNAF lore. But unlike the past 2 Fazbear Frights books, where the connections have been a bit looser, I suppose is the best way
Looser?
to describe a time-traveling
Ball
ball pit
pit.
that leads to a scene of some 1985 pizzeria murders, the stories contained in this one, in 1:35 a.m., all feel
What?
very
Time to wake
strongly
up.
connected to, well, like I just said, every corner of the FNAF canon. The stories
Every
here
corner?
are starting to show how they're connected to not only each other,
Dude,
but
Stitch
also
Wraith
how
is
they're
still the
connected to the
coolest.
original book
That
trilogy,
name.
and yes, how they're even connected to the games, creating this elaborate web of complicated animatronic death. But more than anything else, these books are starting to confirm things for us. Theories and suspicions that we've had for the better part of the last 5 years.
Also
which,
proving something's wrong.
Kinda nice to receive
You
some
did it.
level of validation. Like I said,
And also
it
a
is
reference
lot
to game theory.
cover, and so I'm going to cover this one like I've covered the last 2 books. Today's episode is going to be dedicated to a general overview of the stories, spotlighting some of the most important details for theory crafting, and explaining what I think
Room
this
for
new
one
batch
more
of
than
stories
New
is trying
Kid.
to tell
Are
us
those
about
the
the
books?
series' mysteries. And
Or
then
is
the
that
next
just this
video,
book?
we're going to be doing a deep dive into probably the biggest mystery of all 3 books so far: FNAF's newest killer animatronic,
Stitch Raid.
the Stitch Raid.
So
this guy
cool.
is actually really interesting, and his story is
Such a
starting
cool
to weave
name.
through most of the 9 other small stories that we've covered in these other books. And
Really?
what he means might actually have some severe implications for not
Have you
just the
seen this
original
man?
trilogy of novels, but also the future of the games.
Security
like I said, more on
breach.
that next week. But for today, let's start with
Somebody's
our
starting to
title story,
watch somebody else's
1:35
video
a.m.
before I
This
do
one is
security
pretty
breach,
straightforward.
or start the security
Delilah
breach
is a young
videos.
woman with a tragic backstory. Her parents both died when she was 11, at which point she was bounced around and abused, sadly, in the foster care system for years.
Oh,
Eventually, she
that's
finds
awful.
a stable home and happiness with a man named Richard. They get married, and Delilah
Sounds like dick.
excitedly looks forward to finally having a child of her own so she can finally complete the family that she never had. Everything
wow,
is
that's-
going great in her life until Richard divorces her. Now she's alone and sadder than ever. And then she dies, trapped in a ventilation shaft after being tortured by the embodiment of the child that she never had. Children's entertainment,
What?
ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so
That's
I
the book?
may have skipped a few steps there, but it's roughly the idea. One day, Delilah finds an animatronic doll named Ella at a garage sale. A doll that reminds her of the child that she always dreamed of having. Quote, with brown curly hair,
just get a
big
dog.
dark eyes, and plump pink cheeks, the doll looked almost exactly like the baby Delilah had envisioned having someday
That's
with Richard.
kinda creepy
She'd been
that you
sure that she was gonna
envisioned
be a
that.
mother. So sure that she'd named the baby before the baby was even conceived. Her name would be Emma. Delilah reached for the tag that hung on the doll's wrist. My name is Ella. Ella. So
Ella.
close to Emma.
Emma.
Delilah felt an odd tingle
Except
slither
more
through her
L's.
body. End quote. She buys the doll, in part because it reminds her of her almost never child, and because it has a built-in alarm clock. Emotionally scarring with a side of functionality, just the way I like it. Anyway, she sets the alarm inside of
Alarms
Ella for
kind of
1:35
scare
p.m.
me
to help
a
wake
little
her up
bit.
for her shift at work. But the alarm doesn't go off. And just like that, Delilah gets her first taste of parental disappointment. So she does what any good parent would do in that situation, immediately hurls her would-be child into the nearest dumpster.
Wow.
Yikes, Delilah.
You had
Maybe it's
one
better
job.
that you and Richard didn't have that kid after
Yeah.
all. Anyway, that night she's awoken at 1:35 a.m. by Ella. Delilah assumes that she
How?
accidentally set the alarm for a.m. rather than p.m., which reminds me of the time I didn't bother to set the clock right on my Tamagotchi and was forced to
I've
scoop
never
a
had
scoop
one of
every day
those.
at 4 in the morning. I can't imagine why he died. It's certainly not my fault.
Did they actually die?
Anyway, she tries to find the trashed Ella doll, but can't. And from that
Oh,
point forward,
that's
is
creepy.
slowly driven insane by the doll waking her up
At
every morning
1:35?
at 1:35.
Okay,
I
just
mean,
don't
you know,
go to sleep
1:35
until
is still early
after
enough
that.
at night to get a decent night's
Yeah.
sleep. It's not a 3 a.m. challenge or anything like that,
3
but
a.m.,
whatever.
yeah.
Knowing that
I've
she'll
recently
never
been fixing
feel
my
safe
sleep
again,
schedule.
She climbs into a ventilation shaft
I used to be
in a
going to sleep at, like,
building
7
under
a.m.
construction and dies.
I've been going to sleep at,
Quote
like,
from the book,
3.
She never wanted things, she wanted love. Oof,
Don't we
it
all?
is a heartbreaker, man. The stories in these books so far have been pretty sad, but this one is just tragic. In fact, all 3 stories from this particular book are just rough.
Who's the-
Now, this story
man?
has 2 really important details in it. Details that seem to make Delilah's horrific struggle a strange nexus point for both the original book canon as well as the games. So let's start with the books first. In 1:35 a.m., the Ella doll is described as a, quote, helper doll manufactured
Helper?
by Fazbear Entertainment.
Why?
Continuing forward with that quote, the booklet had a list of
Why?
what Ella was designed for. She could keep time and serve as an alarm clock, manage appointments, keep track of lists, take photos, read
Take
stories,
photos?
sing songs, and even serve drinks. Serve drinks?
What?
Delilah shook her head. Now, in
That's
the games,
poison.
we never really get to learn much about Henry, the creator of the animatronics. But in the novel trilogy, Silver Eyes, Twisted Ones, and Fourth Closet, we get to meet not only his daughter Charlie, but also some of his other
Baby.
creations, including, wouldn't you know it, a doll named Ella,
With rosy
who
cheeks.
is built to serve tea. From the Silver Eyes novel, quote, out sailed Ella on her track, a child-sized doll
What?
bearing a teacup
So
and
this is
saucer
just
in her
like
tiny
the
hands
last
like an
one where it
offering,
was like
end quote. Now, across all 3
they're,
novels, we never get
like,
a solid
very
physical
similar parallel
description
stories
of the Ella doll.
to kinda help
But
explain.
in another book, the Freddy Files, which collects all all the main information about the franchise,
Get out of here,
we
Puppet.
get to see our first illustration of the doll. And wouldn't you know,
Oh.
everything matches the description of Delilah's little garage sale find from 1:35 a.m. Quote again, wearing a puffy-sleeved 1980s-era bright blue full-skirted dress with pink ruffled trim and a big bow around the waist. End quote. It's
Okay.
the same doll, meaning that this first story is happening in the novel timeline after the events of Fourth Closet.
Okay, so
this
they're
is
all
the
in
doll
a-
that Henry created for his daughter Charlie, who I need to technically remind you is his daughter, because again, remember, his daughter
Yeah.
died at a young age, and he replaced her with a series of 4 robots that
And then, like,
represent
moved their
Charlie
memories.
growing up at
Yeah.
various ages. So Ella technically is an early version of his own daughter. Figured I'd throw that little factoid
It's a
in
little
there,
creepy.
since, you know, this is a real and totally valid plot point from the novelized series of events in this very easy to understand series. But that's not all. While
He hasn't
I was
admitted that
reading
he's
the
lost his
story,
mind.
The way Delilah decides to hide in the ventilation shaft felt really strange.
I'm not
to
sure
me. Like,
why.
It was super random, but also was one of those things that felt so oddly
Where do you find a
specific that it
ventilation
felt
shaft
like it
that
had to have
big?
had a bigger purpose. So I dug around and found this for you. For your consideration, I present to you Night 2 of Sister Location.
So, funny story.
What?
A dead body was found in this vent once. Okay, so not that funny, but
Not that funny.
it's a story.
Yeah.
So, could Delilah be that body that was
Uh,
actually
more
found
likely.
in the vents of Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals? Maybe, but probably more likely it's alluding to that story from Sister
Yeah,
Location
it's a
rather
parallel
than directly
thing.
the same one. You see, in the book, we're told that Delilah's vent is in a site that's under construction, a 3-story structure that feels a bit like an office building. Sister Location, meanwhile, takes place in an underground facility
like a
underneath a
bunker.
residential home, so it's probably not the
Those houses
same
look
building.
expensive.
At the same time, though, the story makes it clear that Delilah was drawn to this place. Quote, the answer to her plight was in here. She was sure of it. Someplace here she was gonna find a way to escape Ella forever. End quote.
Why?
Time and again, throughout all of these Fazbear
Why
folk
did-
stories, we're shown
why
people
would you-
being drawn to the Freddy Fazbear locations through some supernatural force. So could Delilah, or whoever died in the vents of Sister Location, have been compelled to come there? And this story is just giving us
Yeah,
a hint as to how that
that's
happened.
just-
Maybe. And whereas the Delilah Sister Location connection might just be me reading too far into things, that certainly isn't true for our second story,
Which
Room
is-
for One More.
Oh,
In
that
this
was the dude
story,
from the
and
intro?
Stop me if any of this sounds familiar.
What?
Stanley is a night guard at a mysterious underground facility full
Oh.
of little ballerina dolls looking to escape to the surface.
And they
Ding,
probably
ding, ding.
escaped
It's like
through
in one
him.
sentence, we just won FNAF bingo. Each night, he falls asleep on the job, wakes up to find a mini Rena doll on the desk asking to go home with him. Stanley falls
No.
asleep again, and when he wakes up,
He's
the
gone.
doll is magically gone. Over the next few days, his arms start to swell, his
Ew.
throat starts to bleed, and yet he keeps going to work, keeps finding dolls, and keeps falling
That's
asleep.
the most American
Eventually,
thing I've
he
ever
learns that
heard.
The dolls have been crawling into his mouth while he sleeps, causing his body to swell to the point of bursting.
What?
The end. The moral of this story, kiddos, be a good employee. Don't sleep on the job. Otherwise, little animatronic
I
creatures are
can't.
going to crawl into you and make you explode from the inside out. What's also interesting about
crazy
this
he
story is
kept
Stanley's
going to work.
dreams. Each time he sleeps while on duty, he has himself a strange dream. In the first, Funtime Foxy
Do they make him
is
sleep?
a cab driver. In the second, the facility's power cuts off and he comes face to face with Funtime Freddy. And in the last
Okay.
one, Ennard is a dentist and Ballora is his dental assistant, which
Oh.
I would say is one of the strangest things to ever appear in this franchise.
But it's
then
not,
again,
no.
I turn your attention to this corner where we have time
Running
traveling
ball
ball
pit.
pit, Anime Foxy, Yandere Chica. Anyway, this one is pretty obvious, right? Stanley is working at Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals, an underground facility from Sister Location.
So what is the
And
parallel
dolls
between the
crawling into
two?
his mouth are a parallel to Ennard using Michael's
Oh.
progressively decaying body as a skin suit in that game's secret ending.
Until-
I think this
well, he
story
didn't
might be trying
explode.
to give us a more realistic interpretation of those events, or something that more closely matches what we see happening in those ending cutscenes. That instead of Michael being scooped and having his skeleton removed and
And
all of that at the
replaced
same
with-
time, that our protagonist Michael instead is being slowly filled up with animatronic pieces night after
Whoa.
night, giving him that progressively
So they can
sickly
escape?
look that scares all the people
But he
around
doesn't
him.
bloat,
Stanley's
really.
story even mentions this, quote, he staggered and stumbled down the sidewalk. Passers-by stared, some seeming worried, others just annoyed, like it inconvenienced them to see another person suffering. Which
Suffer-
feels
another
right on point with
person?
how those cutscenes were depicted in Sister Location. But okay, of
Are
the
they
three
also
stories
suffering?
in 1:35 a.m., it's story number 3, New Kid. That's the most exciting to talk about, at least for today's episode, because
How was
this
this-
one
what?
gets to the heart
This
of
has been
what is
really
still,
good.
to this day, say, the single biggest question of the series.
What's in
and
the box?
That is the identity of Golden
Oh,
Freddy.
why not? Okay.
Let me tell you, I thought we had this one pretty
That was
well
Cassidy.
nailed down. That it was Cassidy, aka the vengeful spirit from Ultimate Custom Night. And yet, this story, well, it causes me to question a few things about our conclusions. First, let's go through a quick summary. Devin is a 9th grade social
That's
loner
not
alongside
spelled
his
like my
only
brother.
friend Mick. One day, a new kid in school named Kelsey shows interest in spending time with the two of
Okay.
them. Kelsey is good looking, he's charismatic, he immediately attracts the attention of all the cool kids in school. And even though
How does
Kelsey,
that
Devin,
happen?
and Mick all get along as friends, eventually Devin gets jealous of Kelsey because Kelsey has everything that Devin wants. And so to get some
Popularity?
revenge, he lures him to an abandoned Freddy's restaurant.
I was
long
bullied
forgotten
in
at the
school.
outskirts of the town. His plan is to trap Kelsey in a spring-lock suit for a few hours to scare him, but well,
Why did you have access to that?
the sheer mention of spring-lock suit immediately gives you a spoiler alert as to what's gonna go down.
Die.
Kelsey puts on the Golden Freddy suit and gets skewered alive. Quote. The blood saturated the bear's matted fur in seconds and began pooling on the
But
floor.
did he
Devin
die?
stared at the moving blood. It looked like it was a living thing. A thinking red liquid lake stretching out. End quote. Mick and Devin leave Kelsey for dead for fear of Devin getting in trouble. But they're not quite sure he actually died. Nearly
Yeah.
a week later, Devin is
Out of
convinced to go back and
jealousy?
check on Kelsey, but when he does, he's in for a
Parallel to the
surprise.
show?
Kelsey has vanished. Devin eventually sticks his hand inside the suit's mouth
And
to
it bites
feel
him.
around for Kelsey's slumped over dead body, only for the spring locks to fail again and crush
Really?
his arm. As
Fail?
Devin lies
Really?
on the floor, trapped and slowly bleeding to death, he gets a final glimpse into the suit and, well, let's just
By
say what he
getting
sees
his hand
inside
bit?
rocks the foundation of what we
Eh,
know
it
about
depends on
this
how far.
franchise. Quote, Devin wiggled in one more attempt to free himself. The mouth opened even more and Devin got a sudden glimpse inside the suit. He gasped. Down low, past his arm, Devin could see a body, a dead body, just like he thought he'd find when he came back here to check. But it wasn't exactly like he thought he'd find. This
He's
one
possessing-
had curly black hair. The body in the suit wasn't Kelsey. Now, there's a lot of weird things
What?
about the story that I don't quite have answers
I don't-
for, but I do have some thoughts about. First and foremost
What?
is the ending. You see, the book doesn't end with Devin's death like you would expect. It actually continues to a final scene with Kelsey, alive and well, as the new
Wait,
kid
he
at
lit-
school introducing himself to two boys. It seems, at a first reading, like this should be a flashback to when Kelsey
Was it?
first
But
meets Mick
maybe
and
it
Devin
wasn't?
at school. Like, this was the fateful meeting that would eventually lead to multiple of their deaths. But it's not. This is Kelsey at a new school meeting two
Oh,
new
wait,
boys.
whoa, so
In
he's
the
done this
story,
to other
Mick
people?
meets Kelsey first and then brings Kelsey over to meet Devin, and it all takes place in a classroom. This closing scene, meanwhile, is outside the front doors of a school, and the two boys Kelsey introduced himself to are less social outcasts like Mick and Devin, and more like bullies. We're expressly told that the boys are snickering at the passing kids. Even Kelsey's first line to them is different. It implies that Kelsey has somehow lived on
And
after his
and is
supposed
unscathed.
spring-trap death in Golden Freddy. And now he's the new kid at yet another new school, introducing
Maybe he's a
himself to
robot
two new
that
kids.
lures
And the way
people
that this
there?
final scene
Does
is
that
written,
to trap
with
them?
Kelsey scoping out the two boys from afar before he approaches them, it feels like he's actively targeting loner kids to make friends with. Could this be
For them to be
Kelsey's
jealous of
attempt
him?
to befriend kids that most overlook and then lure them back to a Freddy's pizzeria for some tragic incident?
And
to
someone's in
happen? It seems like
Springtrap
it would be a
waiting?
stretch, but let's talk about Kelsey himself, Mr. Perfect. Kelsey is a weird entity in all this. Throughout the story, there are moments when his behavior is specifically called out as slightly off. Quote from the book, Kelsey tilted his head and studied Devin for a couple of seconds. For those 2 seconds, Devin had the weird feeling he was being evaluated. And again later,
Okay,
Devin
judged,
was
you mean?
tempted to stab Kelsey to see if he was a robot. Kids don't say stuff like
No, they
that.
don't. Kids
Once
don't
they're
say stuff
actually
like
at the
that.
Pizzeria, things go surprisingly smoothly for Devin's plan. The line in the book even goes like
Wait,
this.
that's all I know.
quote,
I'm
"This
not a
was
robot.
going
I've high-fived
even
the
better
knife
than he
before."
imagined. He thought he was going to have to talk Kelsey into trying on the Golden Freddy suit, but it looked like he was going to do it all on his own. It was like it was meant to be. All of it seems to cast some level of suspicion on Kelsey's true motivation.
Yeah.
Without me even mentioning the fact that his body just goes missing at the end of the book when it has been skewered and bled to death. To me, it feels like Kelsey may just be our vengeful spirit
That
from
picture
Ultimate
is
Custom Night. In
wild.
the story, Kelsey is described as having wavy blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, we have a pretty solid idea that its hair is straight, with a slight wave, and it appears to be blonde. But here's the kicker. This image was created by inverting colors. It's what gives it that blown out and kind of creepy
Yeah.
appearance. If you invert the colors of the
Back.
vengeful spirit's eyes, eyes, you get
They're blue.
just like Kelsey is described in the book. And it would fit the idea of a vengeful spirit, a kid who is angry about his own death, perhaps in an accident like we see in FNAF 4, or in this particular story, looking to get revenge on other kids who are similar to his original killers. He goes from school to school, presumably ones near Fazbear locations, to somehow trick kids into getting killed by the suit. The parallels with vengeful spirit even go to the moments right around Kelsey's death in the book. This is how it's described, and the sound wasn't the bad part. It was bad, yes, but the bad part, really bad
the smell,
was the way the suit started joking in a spastic, horrific dance. It looked like
which
the
we've seen that multiple times.
Gold Bear was convulsing, but it wasn't the bear, it was Kelsey. It's remarkably similar to the final cutscene from Ultimate Custom Night, where we see again an angry Golden Freddy, presumably filled with the vengeful spirit, twitching off into the darkness. Also worth noting is that the spring-lock suits are apparently big enough for kids to slump down into the body. Devin, when he initially can't find Kelsey's body inside the suit, decides to dig deeper down into it. Quote, had Kelsey somehow slid down into the suit? Was that his hair that Devin could see? This, to me, confirms what we see in FNAF 4's storage room cutscene.
What's in the storage room?
Strange tuft of hair that's coming out of the body of the suit.
I don't know if that's hair.
We weren't sure what this was trying to tell us.
Or is that just a hole in the suit?
Hair was meant to be. But now, I think we can safely conclude that it is indeed a child stuffed into that body, and that we're only seeing the top tuft of hair poking out. It would seem to imply that there was a victim before the bite of 1983, and that the crying child was somehow aware of at least one, if not multiple, of past victims shoved inside the suits. But all of this brings us to the obvious question of this story. The curly black hair at the bottom of the suit. Who's that? And honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have
Cassidy,
no idea.
which is what we've been assuming to be Golden Freddy's name this entire time, does indeed have black hair, but it's always been described as long and straight. In the fourth closet, we physically see Cassidy, and she's described as this, quote, that's Cassidy, a girl with long black hair, approached. And in the survival logbook, where we first learned of Cassidy's name, there's this girl who, again, has long black straight
I'm not really sure
hair.
if that's long
That's
hair.
something worth pointing out. For as chaotic as the story in this franchise has been for all its iterations, names and hairstyles and colors of the victims
eye colors
seem to be fairly consistent. Susie
eye
is
colors are very
always
important.
associated with her dog. She has blonde hair with curls and blue eyes. Cassidy always appears to have straight black hair. Fritz always has freckles. The names and the faces of the surrounding characters may change, but the missing children all seem to be fairly consistent in both name and physical description, which is an important detail to keep
things
track
you can't
of
really
forward.
change
So could all of this
unless
mean
their
that
soul gets
Vengeful
swapped?
Spirit and Cassidy are two separate entities? That two spirits might both be in possession of Golden Freddy,
and they're
or
fighting
that
over, and that's why they're
Cassidy isn't
glitching
really
out?
associated with Golden Freddy at all, and is instead the identity of one of the other animatronics. Because in Fourth Closet,
wait,
she
but what
technically
what
wasn't
somebody's
the one
unaccounted
who
for?
was associated with Golden Freddy. Honestly, I don't know. I need to actually review the evidence for this one, and I encourage you to do the same. The last thing worth mentioning for all of us to chew on is the mysterious slithering that's heard throughout this story. While the boys are exploring the abandoned pizzeria, they hear something inexplicable in the walls. Quote, while they were in the bathroom, Devin was pretty sure he heard something slithering through the walls. He didn't say anything. From the way the other boys' faces paled, he knew they heard it too. They didn't mention it either. It's never mentioned again. Nothing ever comes of this strange
And that is why I have a gun on me.
But it's clearly
Like,
important
at all
because
times.
more inexplicable, strange
that's
sounds
creepy.
come from the
From
Freddy
the wall.
torso after
What if
Kelsey
it's the
dies.
tiny
In a later
ballerinas?
quote, did you leave anything else? He tried to ignore the fact that the scuttling sound was coming from the bear suit. Now, this is after Kelsey has already stopped squirming
This is
and
getting real
twitching. So
freaky.
again, we're left with some mysterious force moving around in the pizzeria, creating these sorts of sounds. Is it
Vacuum
Enter?
cleaner.
Is it the Stitch Wraith? Is it something
Stitch
else?
Wraith, so
Like
cool.
I said, lots to chew on
And
with
didn't scare me.
this particular book, but as you can tell,
And didn't
it's
scare
given
me.
us pretty explicit information about some of the biggest questions that this series has had. Now it's up to us, as always, to put all those pieces together. And there certainly are a lot of pieces that'll start coming together.
Wonder if
next
Richard
time
actually
as we
has
start looking
a
into
second
the
motive
power
to
of
this.
agony and the twisted timeline of FNAF's next newest murderer, the Stitch Wraith.
I love the
So
Stitch
make
Wraith.
sure you hit that
Favorite one by
subscribe
far.
button to get notified of when that video comes out.
These videos
next
come out
week.
every single
And in
Wednesday.
the
Patrons get them a day
meantime,
early.
Do me a favor. Remember, it's just a theory.
It's just a theory, and people will still get
Thanks
mad.
for watching.
And people will still get mad. You okay there, bud? You okay there? Yeah, you don't look okay. I'll also be live streaming today at 5 p.m. playing some Pokemon White 2. That's a Nuzlocke. Very stressful. Oh boy. 9.7 million views. That is so many views. But, oh my god. I mean, that kind of... It's not even, like, really too much of a theory. Because, like, a lot of that is pretty clear-cut, obvious stuff. So... yeah, I mean, the books aren't necessarily... The books run kind of parallel as kind of like a guide for, like, how the Five Nights at Freddy games go, like, the story of the games go. And the books are just kind of, like, helping your hand, like, holding your hand, telling you, like, hey, this is how it goes in the book. There's similarities, so that's how it's possible in the games, because it happened in the books this way. I have no idea. It's been a wild journey. The next episode is going to be Your Pain Fuels Us, which pain is power. It's going to be a real interesting video. Is that Stitch Wraith? It's probably going to be Stitch Wraith. Stitch Wraith. Really, really cool. Really enjoyed it. I hope you're subscribed. Should be approaching 69,420 subscribers. It's all downhill from there. Why can't I talk today? This is like only the 5th video I've done today. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it made your day a tiny little better. Hope you laughed and smiled. And you can definitely stop by the stream as well. Like I said, I read every single comment in these videos. I also read every single Twitch chat on Steam. Not Steam. Stream. Jesus Christ, I can't talk today. I'm losing my mind. Maybe I had a ballerina. Maybe one of those just crawled into my mouth last night while I was sleeping. But I hope you have a wonderful rest today. But until the next video, take care and keep the music.
We were